I want to get started by just talking about solopreneur, the term, and give everybody an idea about what Solopreneur Inc. is doing, what we have to offer right now. And then we'll talk a little bit about the topic today, and we'll see where that goes. I mean, we can actually have a good conversation around it and anyways, but so I looked up the conventional definition of the word solopreneur, and it's not quite the way I see it. So the idea is somebody who's entrepreneurial, but is working by themselves without a partner. And I think there's another way to think about it, at least in my own experience. And it is somebody who has that entrepreneurial bug. So there's a motivation, there's a mission, there's a vision, there's a purpose, there's a work ethic behind it, a place the person wants to go, something they want to realize in the world, like an entrepreneur, but it's different because the product's them. And there's less of an interest in taking something to market, getting money, giving up control of the company, and setting it up for an exit. So that's what an entrepreneur is typically trying to do. And I think the way it really shows up in the world. And I think for me, I never saw myself as a solopreneur because I've scaled companies and I've built teams and stuff. But if I looked at it, they were really virtual teams of a few people because I didn't want to have a big team. I didn't want to be a business owner. I didn't want to scale a company. I wanted to get what I wanted out of the business. And I always looked at it as me and mine, as opposed to something I was building really to sell. So I think to me, that's the big difference. And it's a problem because if you think about entrepreneurs, and I did some of these things, I didn't do the MBA in entrepreneurship, but you can do that and learn how to do it. You can also join a incubator or an accelerator that specializes in becoming an entrepreneur. And I tried to do that, but I didn't quite fit. You know, they weren't talking about what I wanted to know about. And then there's obviously a lot of kind of programs that are very comprehensive, designed to teach people how to be entrepreneurs. I think the solopreneur world, to me, with Solopreneur Inc., and the idea behind it is I just see a huge gap because I think there's a way of thinking, there's methodologies, and there are actions and activities that really work, and they're not often put together in a comprehensive way. And that's what we're doing. So some people have asked me to set some context around that. So I want to explain that. So what I wanted to talk about today was smart action. And the idea of smart action in the world for us, I think, has a lot to do with this image I had about, you know, how many people here have felt like a bushwhacker out in the forest with like a machete, sort of going through the jungle, slicing a path through and trying to figure out what the hell am I doing? You know, there's mosquitoes and there's all this stuff going on, but I can't quite figure out how to get on a real path here. And I'm just looking for show of hands here. How many people have felt like that as part of this journey? There's a better way to do it. And this is a lot of what I've been studying really and doing the last year and a half, because I've struggled with that for so long. And what we've done is we created this thing called the Solopreneur Inc. Pathfinder. Our program is Solopreneur Inc. Navigator. That's our paid program, but the Pathfinder we're not charging for. And I'm going to put a link in the chat when we're done here. So if people are interested in kind of spending a little bit of time with me, we're opening a couple of spaces, you know, each week for this. So I'll throw that in the chat right there. But the idea of it is really start with the bushwhacker analogy and start with figuring out where you are in the forest before you start coming up with all kinds of solutions. And I look back at the last year and a half, and I added it up. It was $16,750 on solutions of various sorts, mostly around social media and marketing and visibility and stuff like that. And it didn't work at all. And it's because I learned a lot, but it didn't work. So I didn't know where I was going and I didn't know where I was starting. So that's really the first step with this Pathfinder idea. It's, figure out where you're going to start. And then from there, understand the biggest obstacle that's keeping you from the destination that you want to get to and the life you want to live and the vision you want to create with the company. And when you know what that biggest obstacle is, then you can figure out what the major action is that's going to have the biggest impact. And once you know that action, then you can start to figure out what kind of tools you need, how you're going to move forward, what you have to learn, what you're going to do yourself, what you're maybe going to hire somebody to support you to do. And when we started to think that way, I found it was just a massive difference. And I felt like I was starting to get on a trajectory forward. Trying to think about how to do this. Oh, I just got a message from Mo. He might be having trouble getting in, waiting on the Zoom link. Oh, okay. All right. Hold on one second. So we had an issue there with that. All right. So invite, copy, invite link. All right. I got to respond to his email. Okay. So he'll be on in a minute. So I'll wait to introduce him until he gets on. Okay, there we go. Let's see. Just sent me a note back. All right. So he has the wrong link somehow. Sorry about this, everybody.
Technology is wonderful unless it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
is
I'm not
really
sure
common, yeah.
I'm not sure what happened, but he's struggling to get in.
He's,
And I'm not
he's
saying
right there. Larry, he's over there.
Mo, you're here?
He's over there.
Oh, there you are.
Listen.
Hey,
I
sorry
followed-
about that. Sorry about
I
that.
followed the link you sent me 3 weeks ago. I don't know if it got changed. I've been
Yeah,
sitting
no,
here for
no
15 minutes
worries.
waiting.
No worries. So I got to do my setup anyways, so your timing's not so bad. But what we'll do is spotlight both of us, and then I'm going to introduce you, and then we can have our conversation. So sorry about that. So what Mo and I were talking about was just this idea of action and smart action and how you effectively do that working for yourself. And the idea was overthinking isn't the problem, it's underacting. So he had a great line that we used as the provocative title, which is "Idiots Stop Thinking, Successful People Start Doing." And when I think about that, it's like it triggers something, but I want to know, like, what does that really mean? What is that all about? And I think Mo has really kind of lived this on the ground. So it really started, I guess, in 2014. You sort of gave up a pretty successful life to focus on something totally different. So you're calling it Project Me, sort of an adventure in creating a life for yourself. So I guess the first question is, how do you mean this overthinking isn't your problem? It's underacting. What's your take on that?
Thanks, Larry, and welcome everybody, and thanks for having me. Yeah, overthinking is not the problem. I hear this all the time. I'm overthinking things, or I may be overthinking things. It's linked to perfectionism in many ways. This idea that we have to get everything right before we do anything, right? It's this idea, and I was always of the belief that it's about the outcome. That it's about the outcome. It's about the result. That's the consequences. Maybe that's why you do something. right? But it's Simon Sinek has a new book called The Infinite Game. It's not that new, but it's this finite versus infinite, right? If you get a result, okay, then what? If you win the gold medal at the Olympics, then what? If you reach the top of the mountain, then what? And I did all the then whats. I got to all the then whats until I ran out of then whats. And it was like, okay, I don't know what to do now. And I feel a little bit lost, a little bit hollow, a little bit like I've just wasted 37 years. And then so when I started thinking about, I had to take like a year and a half off to figure this out, by the way. This wasn't I was sitting on a park bench and it just came to me. I had to really think about it. And I started, and this is where the Project Me idea came from. Like I built successful projects, successful businesses. I helped lots of DJs build their careers from scratch. So I knew how to build a project for someone else, but I never thought of my life as a project. And what I realized is the advice I always gave to these people is improvement is a never ending story. And so when do we stop improving? Well, you never stop improving. Why do we need to keep improving? Because what else is there to do? Like, what's the alternative? You wanna raise your awareness and empower your beliefs and experience as much as you can before you finally leave, well, this version of yourself, let's say, irrespective of what you believe. So it's like a never-ending project. That's how I used to always think of restaurants and bars and clubs and DJ careers. I always thought of it as a never-ending project. It's like, so why don't I think of my life that way? Why does there have to be an end and a success and why does it have to be that way? And that was the concept of Project Me. It's like, as long as I'll give you an analogy real quick. And if you want me to stop talking, by the way, Larry, just interrupt me because I won't stop. My mom calls me a radio without an off button. So I have to be interrupted. Otherwise, so if you, let's say sports, it's a good analogy, right? If you were about winning, then you would be miserable unless you were winning. Right. And that's true for a lot of people. So you lose on a Saturday. You guys play sports on a Saturday, like us, right? Probably. So you lose on a Saturday, you're miserable Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and until you have another game on Saturday, and then hopefully you win that one. And but if you enjoy the training and the camaraderie and the process and the exploration and the growth, then you get over your loss, Saturday, maybe Sunday, and then you're enjoying Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
So I'm going to break in. I'll break in on that one. That was kind of goes back to the bushwhacker analogy you missed when I was starting about just taking a machete and sort of going through the woods and the forest and trying to figure out, how the hell do I get out of here? What am I doing? And then I get out and I feel better, which I found in my own life doesn't really work. So the idea is, find your path from the inside out. Walk that path. You got to make money. You got to build wealth. You got to realize your vision. You got to like what you do, make your personal life work, all those things. But it's got to kind of come from you and set that right direction. So when you got to that kind of moment of truth where you had to change or you decided you wanted to change, what did you do? So what happened and what did you do to not drown in the forest in that moment?
There's a couple of caveats, right? So I realized, and you helped me realize that I realized this, by the way, because I forgot when we were talking about the Star Wars structure, that book that you recommended. I haven't read it yet, but I will.
The Star Wars journey, the hero journey thing.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So I realized what I had to do in 2012, but it took me 3 years to do it. And the realization was, if I wanted to change my life or the quality of life, the experience that I was having day to day, everything was up for change. This is the overthinking thing again. It ties to this. You don't get to pick and choose what you want to change if you're not happy where you are. You don't get to pick and choose. Everything is up for grabs. Right? And so why it took me 3 years is because it took me 3 years to wrestle with the idea that I have to sacrifice everything to start again. I don't get to pick and choose the friendships. I don't get to pick and choose the businesses and the relationships and the money And I don't get to pick and choose. It has to be a blank canvas. That's what I realized in 2012, but it took me 3 years to build up the courage or the desperation, if you like, to let go. So that's the first caveat, right? That's the hero's journey in many ways, right?
Yeah.
The Fight Club movie was the one that triggered it. Ultimately, it's the line that says, "Only when you lose everything are you free to do anything."
Mhm.
Right? That's a lot of truth from Chuck Palahniuk, right? In that line. So only when you lose everything. So I thought, well, what have I got to lose? And I had to make peace with that. So that's the first thing. Second of all, I didn't have children. I didn't have any dependents. So it was very easy for me to say, well, let's see what happens. Worst case, I'll get a job in McDonald's. So I don't ever want to say to someone, hey, just give up everything if you're not happy. And it's like, I know people have children and mortgages and dependents and obligations. I understand that. I didn't. And purposely, well, you could argue that I had obligations, but I didn't give a crap about those obligations. So I was willing to sacrifice them. That's what I had to make peace with. And it took me 3 years. And once I made peace with that, and then I decided to go completely into the unknown of, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. By the way, most people don't know what the hell they're doing, by the way, right? Especially in business, right? It's like we're all winging it in some capacity. This imposter syndrome thing is like, it's like a nonsense. It's like no one knows if they're doing the right thing because we're always approaching the unknown, right? And it's not even a syndrome, by the way, imposter syndrome. So it's mistitled. But that's the idea. It's like, am I prepared to plunge into the chaos of the unknown?
Mhm.
And then figure out what I need to do there. So, okay, so you need some structure because you can't just throw yourself into the middle of the ocean. Well, what was my structure? Well, my structure was my knowledge, my skills, my knowledge, my awareness, my wisdom, but I needed to structure that somehow into a plan. And that was the Project Me plan. That was like, why do I exist? How do I want to live? What's my philosophy? That's Jim Rohn. If anyone's a Jim Rohn fan, he always talks about your philosophy, right? What's my philosophy, my principles, my ethics, my values? Can I structure them so that I can hold myself accountable for them? And then what do I want to do in the next 12 months? And there's this idea also, Larry, that you need to come up with 3-year goals and 5-year goals. This is, anyone who says that doesn't know anything about goal setting. Honestly, and I'll challenge them on any platform. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. You need a vision, like a desired state, a desired outcome, living your best life, the kids call it. You need to know what that looks like. But then you just need 12 months of goals because it's short enough to adapt, and it's long enough to achieve some progress. And so once I figured that out, that's how we run projects. Once I figured that out, it was like, okay, I know why I exist and how I want to live my life. What do I want to do in the next 12 months? And that's the breaking it down. And that's what I mean by underacting. Just do something. Like, just do something. Try, knock on a door, try something new, try a skill, speak to someone, do the washing. Like, do something, and that's going to open your perspective, widen your perspective, raise your awareness, open your eyes to certain other things, and then try something else. And eventually you'll find a path. I firmly believe that.
So my experience with this starting September 20th of 2020 was that I was tied down to a lot of things. So I was tied down to a mortgage, a neighborhood, a young kid, a marriage, all of those things. But like you, I left everything behind on the business side and the way I thought about business. So I put my retirement at risk. I turned my other company over to somebody to run, and I jumped into this world without any skills in it, really. So this world of social media and solopreneurship and just all this stuff I'm doing, running events, was totally new to me. Speaking on video, just all of it. I had no idea. Funnels and just like all this stuff was totally new. It was a decision that was almost made for me, where I felt like I had to do it. Is that what you normally see with the people you work with? Is there just a moment of, I don't know, if it was almost like desperation for me, where I was just like, I just can't rebuild this company. I was going through struggle with my other company. I was just like, I just can't do this anymore. I'm done. Or can people just come to this where they just decide, hey, I want things to be better, and I'll do my one-page plan and I'll figure it out and I'll make it better. How does that work out? What do you think?
I think it's Jim Rohn also, or Tony Robbins, or someone who says it's inspiration or desperation, right?
Hmm.
But that's a tricky one for me, because it depends how you define. It depends how you define them. And I think it's more complicated than just saying you're desperate for better or you're inspired to try something. I think it's more complicated than that. But look, if you don't like what you have, you're not going to like more of it, right? It's that penny has to drop. It's like, because a lot of people will complain about things, and I'm like, well, what are you going to do? What are you doing about it? And sometimes you get the, well, it will work itself out, or I'll manage somehow. You get that kind of attitude, but they don't do anything different. Or you have the more serious types that will say, well, look, I need a plan, and they'll go get a therapist or a coach, or they'll sit and think about things, and they'll try things, and they'll try and figure their path. And this is, and I think what stops people from jumping between the two is the overthinking. And often I experience overthinking is in the past. It's like, I should have done this and I should have done that, and that's why I like coaching so much, because it's like, okay. What do you want? What do you want now? And what can you do? Larry, if you're alive and breathing and aware, you can always start again. It doesn't matter how old you are. I was 37 when I gave everything up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you're still breathing and still active, at least to a certain capacity, you can start again tomorrow. But you have to be clear on what do you have to sacrifice to start again, and are you willing to deal with the unknown, which is the only fear we have, really, is the unknown, if you really think about it. But that's another.
Yeah, that's right. That is the biggest challenge, for sure. And I was listening to Simon Sinek's podcast this morning, actually, and I forget who he was talking to, but he was talking about the Great Resignation and jobs, and he says, what I hear when I talk to most people and I ask them about what they're doing, they say, oh, it's fine. He says, but it's fine doesn't turn into anything better than it's fine ever. So if it's fine includes your company, it's not just being employed, but if it includes your company and it's fine, and that's where I was, it's never going to get any better than that. So if somebody's going to take a jump and a leap, into the unknown, what kind of examples or tips or more tangible ideas do you recommend for them, especially the kind of people who are just less likely to, from a personality standpoint or whatever, to actually do that, to be willing to take those risks?
You have to have a plan. You have to have a plan. Like a shit plan is better than no plan. That's the first thing to think about, right? Because if you have a plan, no matter how bad it is, sorry for swearing, by the way, I don't know, I didn't ask permission. I don't swear that much. Well, I used to, but not anymore. So if you have a plan, I think Eisenhower, your former president, said it. It's not the plan that matters, it's the planning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I take that to mean is, you got a plan about what you're hoping to do. What does a plan represent? It represents your expectations. It's a good way of thinking about it, right? It's what you're expecting to do and then to happen as a result. That's a good plan. If I do this, this will happen, and then I can do this, and then this will happen, right? And then you got to match the expectations with the reality. And if the expectations don't match the reality, then either you didn't know enough, or you didn't plan it properly, right? Or you didn't have the right environment, resources, infrastructure, whatever it is. This is business, classic business. Great ideas. Usually businesses are great ideas, but it's the wrong infrastructure, not enough money, the wrong people, wrong timing, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you have to have a plan. And I think a plan, and you start, Simon Sinek, start with why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why? Right? And I hear, I want to get rich. And it's like, why do you want to get rich? And it's like, why do you want these things? So you have to start with the purpose, the intention behind why you're willing to give up your life or sacrifice or change or rock the boat or create chaos. Why? And then once you've understood why, you then have to come up with your philosophy of how. So I'll give you another sports analogy. Everyone wants to win in sports, usually, unless there's some really messed up hidden agenda, right? But everybody wants to win, but there's different ways of winning. You can intimidate the referee, you can play offense, you can play defense, you could cheat, you could play honestly, right? That's your philosophy. So everybody here, I guess, wants freedom, peace of mind, love and joy, depending on how you define those things. Everybody wants stability, security, privacy, right? Intimacy. These are human needs. This isn't, we're all the same, really. So it's like, okay, we all want our freedom. Let's start there. Okay, well, what are you prepared to sacrifice to get your freedom? Or what are you prepared to sacrifice to try and achieve your freedom? Okay, well, that's going to differ. Are you prepared to tell your parents to get lost? Are you prepared to divorce your husband or your wife? Are you prepared to do these things? If I guaranteed you freedom, in your definition, by the way, of freedom, not in my definition, would you? Yeah, exactly, Melanie. It's however you define it. Freedom for me is total freedom, right? Emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, social, environmental. Like literally total peace of mind. I can do whatever I want and I don't have anything stopping me, no limitations. I don't mean like you can fly and be invisible and stuff like that, but you get the point. So let's just say you define freedom, and that's a good autonomy is another good way of looking at it. But let's say that's what you wanted. That's why you wanted to do what you wanted to do. Well, what are you prepared to do to get there? What's your non-negotiables? What are your principles? What are your values? What's your ethical, your moral compass, your ethics? What are they? Are they clear? Are you living by them? That's another thing, Larry. A lot of people talk, virtue signal, right? They'll talk about principles, but they won't live by them. And I think that's the second part of, that's the bulk of so Sinek says start with why, I say focus on how. If you know where you're going or why you live, well, we got to focus on, okay, so you get that right. And then it's the next 12 months. What does the next 12 months look like? And then you reverse engineer it. It's classic project management, by the way.
Yeah.
Right? 12 months looks like this, reverse engineer it to today with where I am, what I have, and what I can do. What's the next best step?
Right.
And then you just keep repeating that. The next best step, bang, the next best step, bang. And you figure it out.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah, that's right. And that's how, we've constructed the Solopreneur Inc. program as well. It's a thinking process. It's not a thing. And you build the resources and to do those things. And I think the resource part's interesting to me. I love Price Pritchett's approach to this in his book U Squared, where he talks about really exponential leaps, quantum leaps. One of the things he talks about, I'm curious to get your thoughts about this, is he's got this analogy of a fly trapped in the windowsill, but the window's open. So the fly's going like this, killing itself, when all it has to do is turn around and fly out the door and it gets back outside. So how do you do that? The only way to do it, I believe, is to be incredibly uncomfortable and start to actually enjoy being uncomfortable all the time, where you're taking these kinds of risks. So if you look at and this is what I'm doing stuff I don't want to do every day, all day long, that makes me really uncomfortable. And I lean in and do it. So if you think about it like that, what was your first year like then? So the first year is the most uncomfortable year, I imagine, in a way, because you're like building a whole new system for yourself. What was it like? How did you push through that? And how did you make it successful?
So there's a couple of caveats to that too. So I had some money. So it wasn't uncomfortable. It wasn't like I had zero to my name, right? I had some money. I wasn't that stupid. So I was able to take sort of 18 months off financially, and I had no obligation. That helps.
Yeah.
Right? But that's why I'm saying I can't just give you a plan. It has to be your plan based on your situation, based on your beliefs, based on your values and principles. That's the idea. But of course it was uncomfortable because I knew time was ticking, and I knew that my identity was now no longer connected to what I was doing and the reputation I built and all that kind of stuff. That's what was, it's like the shedding of the dead skin. Right? Imagine like your skin sheds naturally, but imagine having to kind of force it off. That's kind of how it felt. And questioning everything. You know, most of us probably think that what we say is true. Otherwise, why are you saying it, right? So I approached it from everything I say is not true. And I just tried to analyze my thoughts as if they were not true. That was the most uncomfortable thing. Like I was calling bullshit on everything I said and I thought. That was incredibly difficult because you have to be really honest, like brutally honest, right? And you have to try and find the right answers through that. And it's like burning off the dead skin until you get, and what was left of me, Larry, like 5% of me was left by the end of that process. That was the most painful. I wasn't thinking about what do they think and what are they going to say and I had that a little bit at the beginning, but it was more about who the hell am I and what am I going to find out? And I have no idea where this is going to go. That was the scariest part. But so I didn't have the financial problems. I had lots of friends. I still had lots of connections that had nothing to do with business, and they were happy to look after me. So I stayed in lots of great places around the world, in Greece and Belgium and France, and I was just able to just be with myself and learn to get to know myself. That's a good thing to do.
So one of the things I found with this was methodologies helped me. So one that I used was meditation and a Buddhist thinking, because that gets you connected into reality. The pain of seeing the idiocy of yourself is painful. So I had to go through that, and I still go through that all the time. And I almost don't even care anymore. I'm just used to it now because I've had enough time in the trenches, seeing the stupid stuff that I think and do. So I'm wondering if you had a kind of an approach that you adapted or used. One of the things about Buddhism is you separate from yourself as a detached observer and you watch yourself, right? And that was, for me, one of the most critical pieces. Another is you accept the incompleteness of what you have. So you accept your imperfection, radical acceptance, stuff like that. Did you have a methodology that you used, or did you just kind of figure it out as you went?
Yeah, so I was based in Dubai. So I met my mentor, who sadly passed away this year. I met her in the airport. I was going to Greece, she's Greek. And she heard me talking on the phone to someone, and she was just interested. And she said, "What do you do?" And we got talking. And she said, "Do you know anything about the unconscious mind?" And I said, "Not really." And so we started talking about the unconscious mind. And she said, I see a lot of wisdom in you. And I said, "Don't be silly," and all this stuff. And she's like, "Look, where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to Athens for a couple of days, and then I'm going to Paros, I think I was going to." She said, "Look, I'm in Amorgos. I want you to come visit me there if you have some time." And I went and visited her, and she started teaching me about psychology and neuroscience and spirituality. And she became my mentor since 2015 till this year. And I said to her, "Can you help me? Because I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and I want to know what you know." And she said, "I'll do it on one condition: you write your life story." I never wrote anything, right? I'm not a writer, right? I didn't read books either. And by 2015, I hadn't read a book in my life, really, apart from what they forced me to at school. So she said, "Write your life story. I'll read it, and then I'll let you know if I can help." I said, "What the hell is she talking about?" So I went and I wrote like a one-page, like it was like a bullet point. It was like a bullet point checklist of, like my milestones. And she said, "No, that's not your life story. I want you to go and write it properly."
She's like your She's like your Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah. That's a good analogy. So I went, and anyway, I ended up writing something like 36,000 words. And this was the trick. And I think she told me this trick. I don't know if it was her trick or I don't know, but she said, "Type it out, and every morning wake up and read what you've written from the first word. And as you're reading, new memories are going to pop up, and just add them to where they pop up." And I swear to God, Larry, every morning I'd wake up and I'd start reading again, and memories would just, and what it seemed to me to be is that I was, it's the emptying the cup thing that the Asians talk about, right? It's like I was getting stuff out of my head, which that's conscious unconscious, by the way, right? Your conscious can only hold so much. And you need to clear your head, the headspace, for more to emerge, right? It's like meditation in many ways. So I started doing that, and I still do that now. So my pen and pad, or just typing out my thoughts, helps me A, discover what I'm thinking, and B, structure it properly, and C, get rid of the untruths, so that I'm left with only the gold nuggets. That's really the only practice I would say I've
To practice for sure. And so we've got about 10 minutes left. So I'd like to give people an opportunity to raise their hand, and we'll kind of bring you up. You can talk about your experience or ask a question. But one of the things that really strikes me as a takeaway from today is that these journeys are, in a sense, all the same. There's, I think, universal principles underneath all this. I don't know if it's quantum mechanics or evolutionary biology or whatever the hell all this stuff is. But every time I talk to someone who's gone through this kind of journey, I feel like I'm listening to myself talk. It's kind of always the same kind of stuff. And that's why I think the Star Wars story is so awesome, because it's not like you just do this thing and get everything you want, right? Sajad, I had a feeling you were going to talk about this.
Why? Because it's philosophical.
Because it's your experience in your own way, I guess.
Mo, did you study existentialism and phenomenology?
No, I didn't study anything.
Oh, you're saying a bunch of existential and phenomenological things. You might find them interesting. All right, so I recycled something from my LinkedIn post today, and it's interesting because I was talking about in the future, I'm going to get this RV and travel around. And then when I reposted it, I had to change it to, I got this RV and I traveled around. So I thought it was pretty cool because I had told myself that was going to happen. So my question is, well, in retrospect, it seems like everything makes sense, right? And then thoughts are physical.
Yeah, I like that. The law of attraction people, what are they called? Abraham Hicks and those types of guys in The Secret. They always talk about you got to imagine what's happened and then it'll manifest. I always thought that was a crock of shit, but actually it's true. Everything I imagined I would do and achieve, and in the present tense, yes, Emma, right? So I would ask people to frame goals as if they've achieved it. So I live in this house and I own this business and I experience freedom every day. It's things like that. And it's this idea that energetically you could manifest it. I truly believe that. Everything I've wanted, at least in some part, has happened, unless there's some corrupted thoughts that get in the way.
Yeah, I think where the law of attraction sometimes falls down, there's one guy on TikTok where he makes it sound like you don't have to do any work.
Well, that's the overthinking.
You manifest it and it's just sort of going to happen. And I'm like, no, it's not.
That's bullshit. Yeah.
Bullshit.
That's a good selling.
But you get his course for $2,750, and in 2 weeks somehow somebody's going to put $15,000 in your bank account. So
Larry, there's an expression from an old English movie: you can't cheat an honest man. Right? If you're looking for a shortcut, you're going to find them everywhere, and you're going to be broke paying for them, and they're not going to get you anything. You got to be honest. You got to be honest, and you got to understand the philosophy of life. There's not that many truths to life, Larry. That's what you were kind of saying earlier.
Yeah.
There's 12 truths to life. There's no shortcuts. You got to do the work. Life is a never-ending story of improvement. There's good and bad. There's more unknown than known. You'll never be better than anyone else, right? These are fundamental truths. You have to be honest about this.
Yep. So we've got time for maybe a couple more people. I want to make sure we leave 10 minutes to do breakout rooms, so people have an opportunity to get to know each other, and anybody who can stay on for another 30 minutes, we'll just have a general room so we get an opportunity to talk as a group. So
Harry, I had another one while they're pondering.
Sure.
Well, it has to do with something you said, Larry, and it's something that it might just be biologically different about you, or maybe it's choice, I don't know. But going into discomfort, because people avoid discomfort, the main thing in my experience that people need to be doing is the main thing that they're avoiding. And they get really excited about all the things they like doing. And they talk a lot about all the things they enjoy doing. And then they avoid the most important thing they need to be doing, which is the thing that doesn't give them pleasure.
Yeah, I would say, Sajad, no one can avoid being uncomfortable, right? It's either you're uncomfortable with where you are, or you're uncomfortable trying to get to where you want to be. It's just that we somehow convince ourselves that that's not uncomfortable. Being where we are isn't uncomfortable. It's fine, but it's bullshit.
Right.
You're lying. Look, there's only one relationship that matters. Your unconscious and your conscious. You can think of your unconscious as your 6-year-old self. It's the easiest way to think about it. 6-year-old Sajjad, 6-year-old James, 6-year-old Jeff, 6-year-old Catherine, right? What does 6-year-old Catherine want, right? And everything that you say that's against that, you're breaking that relationship. You're breaking the rapport between your conscious self and your unconscious self. Your core self and your logical, flawed, right? Conditioned self. That's the relationship that we're always working on. Well, the only way to work on that relationship is to state with intentionality what you want truthfully, and then do whatever you can to get there. And then your unconscious starts trusting you again. And it starts giving you power. That's the law of attraction as I understand it, Larry. Your unconscious, you have so much power in your unconscious, right? Your intuition.
Yep.
But why is it going to give you the power if you're bullshitting it? And if you're lying and if you're letting her down, why?
Emma, you got your hand up, and
Sorry,
then
I cannot-
Robert.
I know, I cannot help myself on this one. The other thing too, you have to be clear in your intentions. That's why most people, when nothing happened, they're getting pissed off. And I have to tell them, you have to be clear. If you're telling, I want this car, no, I want that car, no, I want that car. The universe is going to say, you know what? I'm not moving until you're telling me which one you want. Because if you're not clear, then nothing's going to happen. So that's one. Two, when you set your intention, don't think and sit on your couch eating your potato chips, because you're going to need to do one step. When you do one step, the universe does 10 steps toward you. You need to go and in motion, because you meant what you said and you said what you meant. So you need to move forward. Don't expect miracles like you talked about at Larry a minute ago, like, hey, for $27.99, I can show you the secret. Well, the secret is clear up your mind, set your intention, what resonates with you, by the way, not what the neighbor has, but what resonates with you will happen. If it's not meant to be with you, that means something is not right. Set your intention right and move forward. I could talk for hours on this one too.
Well, we're running out of
now.
time. We're running out of time too, because I got yelled at for cutting off the networking last time, because we're having a good conversation. Everybody can stay afterwards though. So Robert, I think you're the last one up, and you got a couple minutes.
Larry, can I suggest we hear from Robert, Troy, and Catherine, and then if I want to say anything or you want to say anything, we can come in. We'll give a minute.
Yeah, let's do that just really quick, because I want to give everybody the networking opportunity, because everybody wants me to do that. So
I'll make it quick because I love the law of attraction. And the last part of the law of attraction is action. And it's like, you've got to get into action. And obviously you've got to be, and going back to what Mo said, being willing to change. You know, everything that we're doing, we're getting results. If we don't like the results, we've got to figure out how to adjust and make sure that we are creating the necessary proper changes so that we get the results that we want. And that's it.
perfect. Troy, I think you were next.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys are saying. I have one obstacle though, and it might be just because how I'm built or how I grew up. When you talk about the future being the present, in my mind, I'm saying, well, that's technically not true right now. And I have a problem, and I'm not saying, I'm not saying I'm right or anything like that, but technically it's not true. And I need to get around that obstacle. That is extreme, because I hear that all the time. I said, no, you don't have a big house, because I'm very technically true or false, and that's how I always have been. How do you get around that?
We want to answer you, but we're going to Catherine.
So, okay, but in response to that, Troy, what's interesting, I was listening to Wayne Dyer like in the 80s on cassette tape, right? And one of the things that he said that really struck me was, if you say, I want to be healthy and I want to go to Greece, and you play that recording in another year, that's where, you know, it's still, I want. It's pushing it away from you. So
Mm.
it does take a little bit of adjusting your perspective, so to speak. But the point that I wanted to make, and I'll make it quickly, is that we are all vibrational. And the law of attraction is a secondary law to the law of vibration that we all operate on. And we are electromagnetic, and there's polarity with this. So when you set your intentions, your desire, that's a positive. And you have to have the expectation. The expectation is the negative. And so if your expectation is wimpy, not happening. So
Mhm.
polarity, don't forget.
All right, that's awesome. So sorry about the link issue, whatever that happened there, Mo. But this is awesome. It's always fun to talk to you. And you offer something called the one-page plan. So if anybody's interested, you can reach out to Mo. He's got a pretty cool methodology around this stuff that he developed.